guys, Sarah here from Highland Haven Australian Shepherds and Highland Haven Dog Training, and welcome to episode 8 of Dog for Thought. Joining me is my co-host, daughter, and dog trainer extraordinaire, Sophie.
Hi, everyone.
So what's going on, Sophie? Give us an update in Dogland.
Well, we had to bring 3 of our dogs to the vet.
So we had to walk the walk.
Yep.
We talked the talk on whatever episode 5 or the 6 life skills, and we had to walk the walk. So,
And they did great. All of them did great. I mean, of course, the vet is an anxious area and it's new, and they know that it just smells scary. But they all did really great.
They did. So we took
all the blues. So Vivian, Ty, and Twiggy.
Right, and we took Vivian and Ty for their annual vaccines. Or whatever, annual checkup and some vaccines. And then we took Twiggy in because she's been super cranky. And she is in heat now, which we can touch on in a minute. And I thought it might be a good idea to just do some blood work to make sure that her crankiness is more hormonal and not anything else sort of going on behind the scenes that we don't realize.
Yep.
And we did find that
She has Lyme disease.
she has Lyme disease.
So that could contribute a little bit. But I think for the most part, her panel came back good. It's just the Lyme disease, right?
Yeah, I think the rest of the panel was fine as far as I understand. So for those of you who don't live in the northeast of the United States and aren't familiar with Lyme disease, it's a tick-borne illness. It's extremely common. We live in New York State. It is extremely common in the northeast. Most dogs will be exposed to Lyme disease in their lifetime. Many of them will not be symptomatic, even if they're active for Lyme disease. They sort of fight it off and they don't have symptoms and they're fine. So the owner sort of never knows. And then you have some dogs that become symptomatic. And the symptoms classically are lameness on the front end. So lameness on one or of the other front feet. That my dogs are generally pretty classic. When Ty starts limping, and he did start limping 2 days before his vet visit, and I thought he might need some antibiotics. He's a chronic Lymer. He's had it many times, become symptomatic many times in his life, and there are reasons for that. I just think he was exposed as a puppy. And so he needed antibiotics, and of course he got his shots and stuff. And then Twiggy came up positive, which I think she's had it before.
She definitely has had it maybe once or twice before.
But she was not lame.
But she wasn't lame, and I mean, I would run her in the woods and do all that stuff, and I've had my eye very close on her since she's been so cranky, so I would have noticed if she was lame.
So I'm wondering if some of the crankiness is because she just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
They really feel crummy when they have Lyme disease, and the antibiotics are amazing. So literally within 24 hours of Ty being on antibiotics, the limp disappeared. I mean, disappeared for Ty. He always has a chronic limp because he has some arthritis in that same ankle that's constantly sort of where the Lyme disease sort of settles on him. But he went from limping severely to just his typical
Limp.
little bit of lameness.
Yeah.
And his, attitude improved. He was a little bit, I think, under the weather, and now he's back to his normal sweet self. So the antibiotics are great, thank goodness. Vivi, I think, came up positive, but she doesn't have any symptoms, so you don't necessarily treat them unless they're symptomatic. But because Twiggy is cranky, we felt it was important to treat her, especially since we're going to be breeding her.
Yeah.
So you want to touch on that?
Yeah, so we're going to breed her to one of our breeding friends. She has this beautiful, is he a bi?
I think he's a bi. So black and white.
And blue eyes. And he's just gorgeous. His name's White Walker. So I'm really excited for that because we tried to breed her the last heat cycle to him and she didn't take. So this time we're gonna do natural breeding instead of side by side.
Right. So last time we did, if you guys remember, we did artificial insemination. So side by side, taking it from the male, inserting it in the female artificially. Because Twiggy really doesn't like the whole process of breeding. But she did not take. So it's important that we breed her again because if she doesn't take this time, that would be 3 heat cycles in a row.
And then we're going to spay her.
Right. So she's going to get spayed whether she has a litter or not. Obviously, it'll actually be the same timing for each. So if she has a litter, after the puppies are weaned, it would give her about a month to recover, and then she would get spayed. That's yeah, not far off the timing if she doesn't take.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Because you don't want to spay them when they're in their heat cycle because there's all kinds of
Complications and
blood
stuff.
flow down there, and it makes the spaying much harder.
Yeah.
So we decided to retire her early because she just hates the entire process
Yeah.
of reproducing.
Yeah, and we were talking about it, like, with all of our females, Remy was really easy with most of all the breeding stuff. There'd be a couple things that she didn't like. Same thing with Meadow. She was a very good mother, but there were a couple things she didn't like. Twiggy does not like the beginning, the middle, or the end.
Right. So Twiggy doesn't like being in heat.
Nope.
She doesn't feel well.
Nope.
Some bitches are, you don't even know they're in heat, except, of course, they're staining. Twiggy's cranky and unhappy.
Yep.
She probably doesn't feel well. I can relate. She hates the breeding process.
Yep.
Like, really hates it. She doesn't like being pregnant. She
doesn't-
feels crummy.
She doesn't like the labor.
She doesn't like whelping. And she doesn't particularly like being a mom.
No.
Although she's a good mom,
She is.
she's out of that box.
It was like 3 weeks, exactly 3 weeks.
And she wanted
was
nothing more to
upstairs.
do with the puppies.
Yeah, she didn't see them at all after that. She was like, "Yeah, no, I don't need to see these guys." So yeah, we both of us decided that for her quality of life, just spay her early. And where, like, we can do an example like Journey. Journey does well through like every
The whole thing. The only issue we have with Journey, which is very common for most moms, is she does get a real spate of diarrhea.
Yeah.
Right after the puppies are born,
Yeah.
and that's pretty common for a lot of moms, new moms. So I have to manage that, but I've gotten better at it over the years. How to manage it holistically, and just physically manage it, make sure that she has access to the outside. And then we set up papers around the whelping box. So when she has to go, she goes right on the paper inside. She doesn't have to wait for me to let her out.
Yep.
But yeah, Journey
It's
loves
manageable though.
Yeah, and she likes to breed. She's normal. She likes to breed. She doesn't feel particularly bad when she's pregnant.
And
the last couple of weeks,
it's like the last week and a half. She's
she's quiet.
kind of just quiet and just sleeps all day, which is understandable. Like, you're filled with puppies.
Sure.
And then she's so good at labor. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
You don't even know that she's in labor, and all of a sudden a puppy pops out, and you're like, oh, I guess you were in labor for the past 24 hours.
Which is interesting because she's such a brittle dog, but she's like, no, I got this.
Yep.
She's very good at the whelping, and she's a great mom.
She loves being a mom. Even when she's not a mom, she'll take care. Like, she used to take care of Vivi's puppies, and she takes care of Twiggy's puppies. So, the whole process she loves.
Yeah. The only thing I don't like about breeding Journey, and this is true for all of our females, is Journey doesn't have a very long coat to begin with. She's not fluffy at all. So when she does have a litter, she then, of course, goes through this postpartum shedding, which is normal. They all go through it, where they lose their entire coat over the course of about 3 weeks. And she looks like a skinned coyote. And because she doesn't have a big fluffy coat, it doesn't, by the time it's growing back, she goes through heat again, and then she sheds it again. So, and she's so cute when she's fluffy, when it does happen. So,
well, I think that once you do spay her coat's going to be like that pristine, perfect length. Because like Meadow looked great. Whenever she would like shed her coat, she would be skinny, but her coat would come back all full, and she would have this beautiful mane, and it was just luscious, and then she would drop it again. But like, it wasn't like traumatizing because she had a lot of coat. Now that she's spayed, she has so much coat to maintain.
Yeah, she looks like a collie. She just has so much coat. She looks like Lassie.
Oh.
Yeah, it's a lot. And it's hot for her.
Yeah,
and
it's
a pain.
Vivian too. Vivian used to have this beautiful coat when she was intact, and now she has this huge manageable coat. And Twiggy, that's the only thing I'm kind of bummed about spaying her is I love intact females' coats because it's like it just looks beautiful. Same thing with the boys. Like, the boys, now that they're neutered, have like neutered male coats, and so it's just not. It just doesn't have the same texture. It's just
not the same shape.
Nope.
They used to be nice and cropped, no trimming necessary, and now their coat just grows and grows and grows, and it does need some trimming. And these are like real idiosyncrasies when you breed dogs, that the fine tuning thing that you notice with your own dogs.
Yep, and it takes them a while for their coat to balance out, if it ever does. Like, Remy had a really bad coat for a while, and now Remy's coat's perfect.
Yeah, it took a long time for her coat to get back to normal after having puppies. Yeah, so we'll breed Twiggy next week and hope she takes.
Yep.
I really do hope she takes because she does produce absolutely gorgeous puppies.
And
Smart,
so nice, tempered, and just
Yeah, so...
kind of bummed I won't be able to keep one, but I don't need another dog, so...
And then she'll spay, and then she'll get spayed, and then she'll just be a pet, like the other retired females hanging around. And we've got Evie coming up.
Yep, and Tula.
So we have, and of course, Journey will still be breeding for a couple more years, provided everything goes well. So
Twiggy's bloodline will still be in there because we have Cyrus, which is a male that we've sold that they've kept him intact. So we might use him for Tula or for Journey.
Right.
So
Yeah, we're sewn up all over the place.
Yep.
Yeah, we're good.
I just want to make sure we keep my girls' bloodlines. That's all I want. Eventually I want another bloodline. Thank you very much. So.
Yeah. All right. So yak. We probably should get started on the episode.
Yep. Let's do it.
Okay. So we thought we would talk about aggression in dogs today. We had this discussion on our training walk the other day. We just started talking. You were talking about a TikTok account that you follow. You want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so it was this guy, and he's a trainer that I follow. And he's trained a lot of aggressive dogs. But this one was unique because it was a cattle dog. So it kind of caught my eye because I love cattle dogs. And also his behavior was so... not out of proportion of a cattle dog, but the way he was treating people was crazy. Like they had a whole full suit on him to like just grab the leash from him because immediately the dog would bite him and like start tearing at the leg and all that stuff.
The dog was super obese too, right?
Yeah, he was fat.
And how old?
I think he's like 3 or 4. And so super obese. They couldn't walk him. They of course have him on a harness, so it was literally impossible to walk him.
Jacob, did you catch my eye roll on that? Go ahead. Sorry.
He had a harness on. I think the owners were having problems getting the harness on him. And then when they would get him out the door, they couldn't control him, obviously. So that he wouldn't walk anywhere. Then he would attack them.
Yeah, he attacked his own
owners.
So like, we're talking about, even though he's not a big dog, cattle dogs are 40 pounds. 30 pounds.
And he's on the smaller side of a cattle dog. Like he's not one of those stocky cattle dogs.
But that doesn't mean he can't really harm someone. So a dangerous dog, for sure.
They're meant to cattle bulls around. So no matter what the size is, they still have teeth to, boss bulls around. So, no matter. Anyways. And I've watched it over the span. I think he's on week 16 of rehabilitating him. And it's just really fascinating how... we have to keep in mind that it's a cattle dog. So they're meant to use their mouth. So pretty much I don't think he's true aggression. So when I say true aggression, I mean like genetically, no matter what you do, you're not going to take that aggression out of them. They're going to be silent. They're going to attack you. A true aggressive dog, we're both on the same page. I just think should be put to sleep. There's not enough room for a truly aggressive dog in this world. This dog has aggression and he's learned how to bite and use that aggression for a benefit. But when you take that ability away, what is his reaction? And I think that's what this guy's doing, which we were talking about, is the guy didn't give him another option. So he put these big bite pants on and would just stand there as he would release him out of the crate, and the dog would bite him over and over and over and over and over again. And he would just stand there.
So what you're talking, just for our audience sake, this dog has learned to bite through a process of reinforcement, right? We're always talking about reinforcement. So this dog has learned to get what he wants through biting, right? So, and we've talked about this before as well, right? The escalating of behavior when you try to put limits on it, right? The extinction burst. So The first time he growled at them, maybe they said, no, no. And he said, okay, well, let me growl harder. Right. And pretty soon it escalated to the point where he was putting his mouth on people, which I imagine probably happened pretty quickly with a cattle dog. And then, with each successive experience, he's being reinforced because now people are backing off, giving him what he wants. In the dog's mind, they're reinforcing, they're teaching him through a process of reinforcement. However, by accident or inadvertent, through a process of reinforcement, they have taught him to bite to get what he wants. So that's where he came in, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like they were just feeding the heck out of him as well because he was really obese and probably unable to exercise him because he's dangerous. And then you have what people don't always remember about overfeeding your dog is when you're putting food into your dog, that is energy, right? You're putting energy into your dog, potential, right? And if you're not then exercising them to that level, the same level of energy you're putting in is not coming out through mental or physical exercise, it's energy unspent, right? It's still there. So by overfeeding, you are making any problem worse, right? Because you are adding energy to a dog and it's not expending that same amount of energy through mental or physical stimulation.
I always think it's like filling a gas tank of a car, and when it starts to overflow, if you light a match, everything will burst up in flames because it's overflowing with energy, and therefore you're going to add some sort of a trigger to it, and it's just going to explode everywhere. Because
as opposed to filling a gas tank to the proper level, shutting the cap, in theory, you could have an open flame near that gas tank, just to sort of put some structure on your metaphor, right? You could have a match near that gas tank and it's not a problem because it's contained. It's not overflowing. There's not too much.
And then on top of it, if you drive it, take it on a walk, take the car, or drive the car, take the dog on the walk, whatever, then you're using that energy and they're not feeling like it's overflowing energy.
Right.
So in this case with this dog, it's a lot of overflowing energy. And then on top of it, they're cattle dogs, so they're bred to use their mouth. So it's just gotten to the point where this dog's biting everyone. Can't introduce new people, can't be around new dogs, can't
even be around his
the
owner.
owner really. I don't think they have kids, but kids would be super freaking dangerous around this dog. Anyways, so it's a learned behavior. So what you have to do with a learned behavior is start teaching them that by you giving me all this energy, all this biting, nothing's going to happen. Right. So he has to wear this big bite suit because he has to teach the dog that you biting me isn't going to make me go away.
Right.
And so that's what he's been doing in the past 16 weeks with this dog, is he's been rehabilitating him by letting him expend that energy that he's had, feeding him less food, getting him exercise, teaching him how to walk on a leash, because the dog had no idea how to walk on a leash. And every time he would walk on a leash and get corrected, he would redirect. So we had to start teaching him with like a long line, so the dog could walk all over the place and not being like in a perfect heel like most trainers like. And he really had to kind of go around this aggression in a very specific way to get what he wanted from this dog. And it's just been really interesting the past 16 weeks watching him.
Yeah.
But would I do it as a trainer? No.
Yeah, so we don't do aggressive dogs.
No.
It's a niche market. And there's a lot of shady characters who work with aggressive dogs because it attracts a certain type of person, right? The person who's maybe power hungry. Oh, I can make this dog submit. That being said, that there are a lot of really very talented trainers who do work with aggressive dogs in a humane way. But I think they're, just my opinion, I think that there's a lot fewer of those. Yeah. We don't do aggressive dogs for multiple reasons. To me, it's not worth it. I don't want to get hurt training dogs.
I think it's a liability.
Yeah, for sure. And that's where you and I really started to discuss this, because my opinion is that retraining, rehabilitating an aggressive dog, where's that dog going when it's done? Who's it going? Is it going back to the owner?
It's going back to the owner who got him in that place in the first place. And in a case where we're working on pulling or a reactive dog, they go back to the owner and they might show that behavior, and the owners have tools to be able to handle it. but it's not going to explode to the point where they bite somebody or bite a child. You know, they're reacting at a dog. They're not aggressive.
They're not being dangerous.
Yeah. So like if they go out of the script of what you've trained them, they're not going to really hurt anybody. But if you are training an aggressive dog and they go out of the script just a little bit, it could severely hurt you, hurt a child, hurt another dog. So that's
sure. Right.
The fine line.
In some ways, I think that, first of all, the whole social media, like in some ways, I think it's interesting and cool to document a process like this, working with this cattle dog, because it does, if you're doing it correctly and humanely and you are knowledgeable and all that, you have a good trainer, it can help, you know, if not the general public, because the general public wouldn't be working with the dogs like this, but other trainers, right?
Yeah.
It helps us and other trainers sort of see the process and think about it. And that's where most of our discussions come into play when we're walking, right? And we're like, oh, we should talk about this in the podcast. This is a good example because I feel very torn with the whole aggression thing because I don't think I could ever trust the dog. The dog's put his teeth on people, and in this case, many, many, many times. Can you retrain that? Yes, with one person. But where's the dog going?
Yeah.
Are we putting the dog back in the home with just average people who are not professional dog trainers? And is that ethical to the general public,
Yep.
to the clients themselves? But also ethical and humane for the dog. Is it fair to the dog? Because they might be then put in a position where they really do injure somebody and then they're put to sleep.
Yep.
So it's an interesting conversation that you and I have about this. And I have seen some clips with this particular trainer, although I don't follow him. The other thing I think we talked about was one caveat with this particular one was the fact that he's a cattle dog, like you touched upon, right?
Yep.
So for me and you, a cattle dog we know is bred to put their teeth on things, right? That's what they're bred for. So having this kind of aggression in a cattle dog is not out of the realm of possibility, right? Yep. It's in that, you know.
That's what we've bred them for, is to
Right.
put their mouths on living things like bulls.
Right. So it's in the range of normal for them. In this
Yes.
case, super extreme to one end, but still in the range of normal.
Yeah.
If you are dealing with a golden retriever, which we talked about, right, on our walk, I said, well, I guess if you're going to push me, I would rather deal with a cattle dog with this issue because, again, it's in that range of normal for them, although extreme. Aggression in a golden retriever is not in the range of normal.
Nope.
So in that case, you got to then look at that dog and go, do we have some wiring problems here that make this dog a loaded gun, right? And in that case, I would be much more quick to say that dog needs to be behaviorally euthanized because it's not normal for a golden retriever.
Not normal for a golden
Again, you have a German Shepherd. That is within the realm of normal. We've bred them for guard work. We've bred them for police work.
A Malinois.
Yeah, that is in the realm of normal. Even for a Malinois, that's maybe not even on the extreme, right? For a Malinois, putting their teeth on things to get what they want is actually not an extreme behavior for them.
Well, and I think that's what I talk about the cattle dog is like, this is part of what we've bred them for. So therefore, it's just part of who they are. We can't change who they are. We've bred them to be this way. So we can't, humanely euthanize them because
they're acting
in the way that they're bred to be acted. In another case, then we could talk about small dogs, right? It's a small Chihuahua and he puts his mouth on you. It's not really a big deal.
Well, and then of course the theory is that's why there's so much aggression problems in small dogs. Now, some aggression problems that, we laugh about in Chihuahuas is because it's painful to watch sometimes because especially, on social media when people are posting these videos like, woo,
And they're like holding their Chihuahua and he's giving them kisses and the Chihuahua's like,
And that dog is asking for space.
Warning you like 50 times.
And you
like,
don't
stop.
listen.
You're not listening. And now you're making it worse and worse and worse. And the reason now he's like this is he knows you're not going to stop.
Right.
You know, and then they're like, see, Chihuahuas, they're aggressive little assholes. And I'm just like, no. You've made that dog that way.
Right.
You know, and you follow a trainer and she's like proven that, like, you know, if you give them space.
She specifically went out and got a Chihuahua. Mm-hmm. She has a Malinois, beautiful Malinois. Mm-hmm. I really love her. That's Dog Sense on TikTok. Mm-hmm. I love her. She has a Malinois, and then she just fairly recently got a Chihuahua, specifically because she wanted to prove that if you listen to their requests to give them space when they feel threatened, that they don't feel the need to escalate. Mm-hmm. She also sort of wanted to prove that big dogs and little dogs can get along. Chihuahuas can get along with big dogs. She has very good safety protocols around the Malinois and the Chihuahua. She does not just let them go and let them sort it out and go to the store with them out together. She has, like we do with our dogs, she has good safety protocols when they're not being supervised and such. I really like her. That's Dog Sense, and she's just has tons of common sense and a really good trainer, and is very articulate. I really like her.
Yeah. And, I think it's really important to just kind of outline the types of aggression, because I feel like aggression could come in all different shapes and sizes. And what is humane and what is ethical and what isn't ethical is like really important when we're talking about aggression.
Yeah. And like you touched upon, I'm a big believer of this, there's just no place in society for aggressive dogs. And again, I keep going back to the social media stuff. Like, these people will go to the shelter and get like the worst dog out of the shelter to bring it home and like get, social media fame, supposedly rehabbing this dog. And the question is that ethical?
And meanwhile, there's like this really nice, sweet, Pity in the back who's great with kids and all this stuff, and you skipped right over that one so you can go for this one that's could have mental problems or whatever, and you're trying to rehabilitate them, and you're just getting TikTok famous, and this dog's known to be like not great with people or kids or whatever. And I don't know, it's a fine line. It's a fine line of what is ethical and what isn't.
And we got to talk about the shelters and the rescue groups too. Mm-hmm. They have a huge part to play in this. And this has always been people who are involved in rescue and work at shelters. In some ways they're doing God's work, right? Yep. They're doing the work that it would break my heart and ruin me. Mm-hmm. And I respect that. However, when you're rescuing dogs, it is very intoxicating. Yeah. So when I rescued Dibby, who we talked about a couple of episodes back, I truly rescued her. I did not get her out of a van that came up from the south that I got through Pet Finder, right? Yeah. I actually went out and plucked her from a life of being a stray. That is very intoxicating, and you want to do it again because it's easy to see the help that you've given this dog, and you get a lot of just a lot of euphoria from that. And in the rescue community, that can go awry really quickly. Yeah. Particularly with people who maybe don't have good relationships with other people, struggle with their relationship with people. They find community with animals, right? They find relationships with animals. And
then it gets to the point where it's just like you're rescuing, and then your house is filled with
dogs who aren't
getting a bunch of dogs, and they're not getting the help they needed because they have some sort of trauma or whatever. And then all of a sudden they're on the news saying that,
Yeah, and we experienced that.
There was that lady.
We experienced that recently, actually right here locally with us. Yeah.
And we've had a conversation with that lady too, briefly.
Yeah, and I'm not going to mention who it is. If you guys are living here locally in New York, you probably know it was pretty big court case locally. Mm-hmm. So we ended up connecting with that woman who had a very big rescue a few towns over from us through happenstance, and I ended up spending like 30 minutes on the phone with her. And she sounded great.
Yeah.
Like not a
Yep.
young woman. This is a woman, I would guess she was in her 60s. She sounded like totally normal.
Like she had her shit together.
Like
She's
she-
been through
yeah.
the ringer. She knows how to deal with these dogs and all this stuff.
She had a good head on her shoulders.
Yep.
She was using, it seemed like she appeared to me when I spoke to her on the phone to be using common sense protocols, right? Not saving every single dog, because not every single dog can be saved or should be saved when we're talking about dangerous stuff, or dogs who have health
issues or
with-
trauma to the point of, it's a danger to society,
She
like
seemed to
really good
understand
head
that.
on her shoulders.
Yeah.
And then we find out like a couple months later,
Well, this was probably about a year ago. It was
like
more than a year ago.
a little, yeah, I guess it was.
I think
a
it
little
was a year
over
ago in the spring when we
Yeah.
ended up having contact with her, and I spoke on the phone with her, and I just thought she was great, and I was like, oh, this is a woman who has really dedicated her life to this. Good for her. And then we came to find out just a couple months ago that she was arrested and charged with animal abuse and terrible stuff.
It was like really terrible.
I think it was
stuff.
an Aussie and Aussie mix, actually.
I thought it was a Bernese Mountain Dog.
Okay, all right. Yeah, maybe it was a black tri. Maybe that's what I
Yeah.
was thinking. Who had parvo?
Yeah, and all of her puppies had parvo, and the puppies were like dying.
Yeah, and she didn't treat a court allegedly. She did not treat the mom or the puppies,
Yeah.
and they were basically in her shelter suffering allegedly.
Yep.
And I guess one of her employees dropped a dime on her, thank God.
Yep.
And they came in and seized the mom and the dogs, and I think they all died.
They all had to be euthanized because it was like too far in parvo.
Horrible. And you look at that and you think, what the actual heck is going on here? Like, and again, it goes back to how I think rescue can be super intoxicating and can give you a God complex, truly. And it gets out of hand. And you go in with these great intentions, and suddenly you have 50 dogs, you have 100 dogs.
You can't pay attention to this one because you're focusing on this new one that you're rescuing, and it's
You're running out of money, and you're robbing Peter to pay Paul to cover the vet bills of this dog and that dog, and you can't bear to put this dog down because, even though he has these terrible health conditions, you can convince your local vet to, do a lot of free services or low cost services. And you're like, is this in the best interest of the dog? But they get lost. They get lost in all of this. They just lose touch with reality.
Yeah.
And they lose touch with what they originally got into it for. And that's why we get these dogs who get homed into the average home that have crazy behavioral problems, crazy aggression problems, and or crazy health problems, because people get sucked in by that.
And then it's, I think we can go back on, we had, it was a potential client, and they adopted a Akita mix. And they were like in their 60s and 70s who adopted
He was a Akita Husky.
Husky mix. And it's like, who is giving these 67-year-old people who've only owned Shibas an Akita mix, a full-grown, just recently neutered Akita mix?
Yeah, he was I think 2 years old. They claimed he was about 2 years old.
Yeah.
And I totally blame the shelter for that.
And then they ended up contacting us. We were going to go through it. A couple things happened. I'm not going to get into the details, but they ended up returning him. And then
Which
it was
was
like
heartbreaking for them.
And it's such, you went in this with such good intentions, and these people were like, oh, here's a dog that I know you can handle. Hopefully you guys can handle him. And then you have to come to terms, I have to pick myself over this dog. And that's the hardest thing for people to do.
And they did.
And
thank
they
goodness.
did. And I think it was a really good decision.
And they had no judgment from us.
Nope.
But they were definitely heartbroken over it. And due to some of their circumstances in their life, did not need that kind of stress over this. It should have been a joyous thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and if you as a shelter person can't figure out, don't know that that's not a good combination, a big, strong, recently neutered husky Akita mix with no manners to a couple who are in their, I think they were in their late 60s, early 70s. It's just not going to work.
No.
But shelters, then again, you get lost in, you lose the plot line, Well, at least he's out of the shelter. And even if they return him, at least he goes to a home for 3 weeks or 3 months or 2 years. And if he gets returned, I'm just guessing what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Or is it, well, if he doesn't go, he's going to be euthanized. So at least this gives him a chance. I think those two those two reasons that I think that maybe that's how they're thinking about this are both unethical and wrong.
Yeah.
Because that dog could have injured them. It could have injured the public. And although he wasn't aggressive, he was dog reactive, wildlife reactive on leash, very strong. And he could have really hurt somebody.
Yep.
And again, these people were heartbroken over this.
And I think he almost pulled them down multiple times. And it's like...
And could we have trained him? Yes, we could have. We actually
really liked him.
Yeah, I think he was a great dog for the right home. He could have done quite well.
Not for them.
Not for them.
For older people, no. But if it was a young man in his 30s who was single and needed, some training, that dog would have been great.
So not a family with young kids.
No.
Not a family with kids at all. But a young couple who were really dog experienced, or a single person who was really dog experienced with either Huskies or Akitas. Yeah, I think he would have done great.
Yep.
But the placing was totally inappropriate.
And we ended up just being a little nosy and going back online and seeing what they have advertised for him. And they had great on leash and all this stuff. And I'm just like, why are we...
Lies.
Come on, people, please. I don't know. And...
Yeah.
It's for me, it's a lot of ethics. Where are the ethics here? Can we do what's best for the animals?
Yeah, I mean, probably like everyone that's listening, I have experienced myself with rescue, with trying to adopt a rescue dog in quotes, right? And I can't tell you how many times I've been turned down.
Yeah.
Which is just nuts to me.
Crazy. With the amount of experience that you had when we were trying to get that.
Yeah, but even if you put that aside, even if you put aside the fact that I'm a dog trainer and that I have dogs and that they're all well cared for and they're vetted and they're contained and trained and exercised and cared for and loved, I had one rescue tell me, and I won't name them because I'm a nice person, that she didn't have to adopt out any of their dogs. They could live with her for life and have a full life. She didn't feel obligated to adopt them out. And so I shouldn't feel like she needs to adopt any of her dogs out. So I'm thinking, okay, so at the time I think we had 2 dogs. So a 1-to-3 ratio in a suburban home with somebody who's super devoted to dogs and has dog experience, just setting the training part aside. A 1-to-3 ratio is not as good as a 1-to-46 or 50 ratio. She had 45 or 50 dogs in her rescue at the moment, and they were all kenneled. So what kind of a life is that? And I was so totally disgusted and turned off by that. And that's not the only time it happened to me.
No,
we tried to do a rescue dog, I think 3 times.
Yeah, we really tried. And before we got into Aussies.
And all 3 times it was the same nonsense.
Yep.
And I know people are nodding into their computers right now going, yep, I had the same experience.
Yeah. It's always very silly excuses, excuse like that. Or I think one of them was, we don't bring...
Well, one was a border collie, remember? Yeah. And she said to us, we don't adopt border collies to households with any other breeds. They can only go to households with other border collies because we had dachshunds at the time. Dachshunds sit on people's laps and try to bite border collies. I'm like, what are you talking about?
I get so frustrated. It's just so, I don't know.
Yeah, again, losing the plot there.
Yeah.
The other thing that sometimes and I know other professionals, dog professionals and whatnot, people who are really super dog experienced in whatever capacity have also experienced when going to try to get a rescue dog, is that The rescue group really likes to work with ignorant, and ignorant is harsh. I don't mean it in a harsh way, but people who are uneducated or don't have a lot of dog experience, they prefer those as potential clients, in my opinion, because they can bully and boss them around and they don't ever get challenged on any of their beliefs on how you should adopt and what breed and all that kind of stuff, right? So when they talk to somebody like me, or somebody who's like been a groomer for 20 years, or somebody who's a vet, or somebody who, fill in the dog,
Any dog category.
Yeah. They, I think, in my experience, feel threatened by that knowledge and really push against it.
And then just cut you off. And it's just like, I would have given this dog a great home.
Right.
Again,
losing the plot.
Yeah, like the ethics, like everything comes back to ethics when it comes to this stuff. And it gets frustrating because in the end, you are doing this. You are, trying to help these dogs. And,
well, that's what you started doing.
Yeah. And now
is it what
like
you're doing now?
Play now. And it's like, come on, people. Like,
yeah, I do get frustrated with rescues and shelters because there is so many people that are in it that are not in it with the right ethics anymore. Maybe they got into it with it. That being said, don't send me angry emails. Yeah. There are lots of wonderful rescue groups out there who do, like I say, God's work.
Yeah, really do.
Thank goodness for them, particularly when you're talking about breed-specific rescue.
Yeah.
People who go into shelters and pick up any Aussie that appears in a shelter and put it in a foster and then try to rehome them. I love that. That's
and
wonderful.
We have a couple that we're pretty close with. And we've worked with, and we've helped train the dogs and get them out in the world. And, so we're not trying to shit over everybody. It's just very frustrating through, a trainer point of view, a dog person point of view. It's just very frustrating when you can see all this potential in these dogs and it's just not being recognized or
they're putting them in homes that they should not be in.
Yeah.
And then they're calling us and provided it's not an aggression situation, we do work with them. But sometimes you're talking about a dog who was a hound mix who came up from, Tennessee or something and now is living in an apartment in New York City.
With 2 little kids.
And you're thinking, who thought this was a good match?
Yep. And, or owners that have unrealistic expectations of these dogs. Like he's a hound mix. You're living in New York City, you want to bring your hound mix to the bus stop with you. This is not the type of dog you want to bring to the bus stop with your 2 little kids.
Right. I mean, don't forget, Sophie, it's all in how you raise them. Is that a triggering statement for you?
This whole conversation is a bit triggering. This shouldn't be, and we're not even talking about aggression anymore. We're just talking about, I know this all kind of falls
we sort of went off on a tangent, but it's all connected, right? Because we hammer home, like, if not directly, indirectly, in practically every episode. Remember, it's all, it's mostly nature. It's not really nurture. So this false narrative that the public has been sold, that it's just in the way you raise them, that this particular breed is actually not aggressive or dangerous or potentially dangerous. It's just they've been raised by mean people who have abused them. And
for the most part, it's not true.
For the most part, it's not true. And let me tell you, dogs who do have trauma in their background, like been neglected or abused, a lot of times come through it amazing. And you would never know, right? You really wouldn't know if you don't dwell on it and you keep moving forward. The line every time a dog shows any kind of weird behavior, immediately people go to, oh, well, they were abused.
We don't know what happened the first. They were a street dog or whatever. And it's like,
even from a breeder. Well, I wonder what happened in those first 8 weeks. Girl, do you know what happened in those first 8 weeks? They lived in my house in the lap of luxury and never had a moment of being uncomfortable. That's what happened in a good breeder's house.
I think a lot of the times when we work with like new clients who've recently adopted a dog, and they're like talking to you on the phone and we're trying to see if this like is a good training program from them. I feel like you have to listen to a lot of people being like, oh, well, they were abused and blah, blah, blah. And it's you being like, no, that's not contributing to leash reactivity. That it's just, you're inadvertently reinforcing this behavior. That's why it is. It has nothing to do with that. And the more you start manifesting and dwelling on that, they're feeling that you're anxious about whatever it is, and they're reacting more and more and more to that behavior, and it's validating your feelings about it. And in reality, dogs live in the moment. I think Vivian has her moments, like she there's certain things that she's just funny about, but for the moment, you would never know Vivian was abused in an abusive household. You would have never known.
Yeah, so Vivian comes from a sketchy background. We actually have photographic evidence of her almost starved to death.
And she has a couple scars that we don't know about.
She looks like on her neck that she has an embedded collar scar. It's exactly the size of a buckle, a collar buckle.
Yep. And it's the thickness, and you can see the grooves in it. Yeah. So that's what we think it's probably from. And the way that when we got her, they were talking about how like she was like chained to like a tree or something like that and left to starve.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Something like
but
that.
Then you have Vivi, who is not at all, doesn't resource guard.
Nope.
Is not protective over her food. She'll let the other, like she loves food. But if another dog walks in and sticks their nose in her food while she's eating, she won't be happy about that, but she won't be aggressive. It's she just has moved on from that.
Yep.
And her quirks, I don't think are related to anything in her background. So we talked a little bit about aggression, and then we went off on a tangent. I don't know, maybe this episode should be called like aggression in dogs and other tangents. I think I did not plan on talking about my issues with rescue.
No.
And social media, this is not like an original thought. Social media is at once the best and the worst that can happen to dog training and dog rescue. Right? If you get bad actors in there who are, putting the Sarah McLachlan, song over their videos of these dogs they're rescuing, it's easy to get to pull at people's...
Donate to us, and in reality, they're actually supporting like puppy mills and stuff like that. And you're just like, are you kidding me? Like, I've been donating hundreds of thousands of dollars to this organization, and I found out they're been supporting, dog euthanasia.
I like to think that people get into it with the best intentions, and it just gets away from them.
I think it's just a power thing. And I think, to kind of go back to aggression, I think I love social media. Like, I love this guy right now from what he is showing on Instagram and stuff like that. I really think, from a trainer perspective, I love thinking about it because I'm just like, oh, it's so fascinating. Like the types of way he was able to rehabilitate this dog. And now this dog, to kind of go back to that, is able to walk nicely on a leash, no basket muzzle or anything. He greets new people because he's just taken aggression off the table for this specific dog. Well,
I don't know. So
I know what you're saying, but
let's imagine him going back to the average home, right? And he gets a little pushy and bares teeth or puts his teeth on the owners again. What are the owners going to do about it?
I know.
They're going to shy away and go, and immediately that behavior is reinforced again.
I know. But
so I think a dog like that has to be in such a controlled environment for the rest of its life for everyone's safety. And
or
well-being.
With someone with experience. Like if the guy kept the dog, I feel like.
Okay, and this is another topic I wanted to talk about within the aggression thing and rehabilitating aggressive dogs. And one of the problems I have with it is that the dog would need to stay with the trainer, in my opinion, right, to be safe. How many dogs can this guy keep? So he's, and then when you start taking in these dogs that can't be rehomed, now you have a motley crew of dogs who are all dangerous in your house, or potentially dangerous, except you can handle them, right? What do you do then?
Yeah.
Now you're taking up space in a home that could be filled with a dog who can participate in every part of life and be safe with a dog who's potentially dangerous. If you then give it back to the owner, right? It's rehabbed back to the owner. That is still a loaded weapon. And people don't think that. I think that they don't think about that part of it. How much work it is to have a dog that's a potentially aggressive.
They're rehabilitated. They're fine. That it's
Right, exactly.
Trauma
And we
doesn't
know
come
they're
back up
not.
again, and then I don't know. Yeah, it's a hard topic.
I mean, just having dog. You can hear how reactive they're being right now. Just having dogs, just having a breed like an Aussie who is not super welcoming to strangers. Although our dogs do fine when somebody comes in the house and sits down, and once everybody settles, within 5 minutes, 7 out of our 9 dogs are like, I'm cool with this person, right? It's still a lot of responsibility to get to that 5 minutes where everybody is feeling good and happy and no one's been inadvertently scared one of my dogs and they feel the need to nip or bark, or more like aggressively bark at somebody because they get startled. It's a huge amount of responsibility. Mm-hmm. And you're not talking for 5 years. You're talking for 13, 14 years. Mm-hmm. So where are these rehabbed aggressive dogs going? Let's be honest.
And then if we talk about, I think this guy's a good trainer. If we're talking about, other trainers that, are suppression. Mm-hmm. And then they're like, oh, look, I have used an e-collar. Not saying e-collars are bad. I love a good e-collar. But e-collars are great at suppressing specific behavior. So you can suppress a behavior with an e-collar. And then the dog does not warn you when they're going to bite you because you're suppressing the growling, suppressing the reactivity with the e-collar. And then all of a sudden they turn and bite somebody and they don't tell you about it. So you're teaching them to not warn you that they're nervous about something. And you're like, look, this dog isn't aggressive anymore. We're walking around Home Depot with this dog and the dog is giving 1,000 different stressful calming signals. Like his eyes are whaled and he's licking his lips and he's looking around and he's obviously in distress. And you're like, look, he's really rehabilitated. And I'm like, that dog looks like a loaded gun. And you're giving that back to the average person and being like, yeah, shock the shit out of them. And they're rehabilitated. And it's like, oh.
All right. So let's just, for our audience, make sure they understand what you're talking about.
Little rant.
So suppression, suppression is when you take a behavior and you apply an aversive, which is a leash correction or a shock collar, right? Or e-collar, something like that. And you use aversive techniques to tell the dog that if you do that, you're going, I'm going to continue escalating my physical corrections.
You're pretty much making them fearful.
Right.
Of whatever it is.
So you're instead of working from the ground up and working on that fear, right? You are working from the top down and pushing it down, right? And so the dog has learned, I better not do that because I get in trouble when I do that, instead of trying to unwind why they wanted to do that in the first place, right?
Yes.
So when you suppress a dog, they are like a coil, right? A retracted coil that with just a little bit of a hit by a hammer suddenly explodes, right?
And it's even worse than it was
way,
before.
way worse because they've been taught to not, like you say, not warn you that they're feeling threatened or stressed or about to, even when they're aggressive, I'm about to bite you.
Yep.
And that's part of the problem with some breeds that are really high caliber. And high caliber, I mean, have some potential to be aggressive, like a German Shepherd, a Malinois, an Akita, a Chow. A Chow is a classic example of, and this isn't a real term, but like natural suppression. And what I mean is they have been bred to not have a lot of warning signals, not have a lot of facial expression. And you'll find that certain groups of dogs that are developed by certain cultures, are either very expressive or not expressive, high energy or super low energy, depending on the culture that has developed this dog for whatever purpose they're using it for. So like a Chow, its natural facial expression is dead.
Well, a Chow, a Shar-Pei, a Shiba, Akita, like these very blank-faced dogs.
And then suddenly, bam, they've bitten you. And you're like, where did I
didn't even see any of it coming from. Where like an Aussie will tell you from a mile away that they do not like you.
Right. Or a German Shepherd will tell you, there will be a ton of barking and warning signs before you get bitten by a German Shepherd. It will not be a surprise.
Yep.
Unless they've been suppressed.
Yep.
Jacob has an experience with one of the boarding dogs that we have that we adore. He's a former training dog. He comes back for boarding regularly, and he's, I don't know, maybe a Shar-Pei.
I think he's a Shiba Pity mix.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Shiba, Pity, Shar-Pei, something like that. He's an interesting combination, but he definitely has the dead face, right? The very expressionless face. And I asked Jacob to let the dogs out when we were at a lesson. And he was one of the couple of dogs that he let out, and he let him out separately and socialized him separately. And I texted him and I said, "Oh, I forgot to tell you, they can all be out together because this dog is actually a very trustworthy dog.
Yeah,
we know him very well. He's a sweet guy." But when Jacob said, "Well, I was a little nervous because he just didn't have any expression in his face, so I couldn't really read him. So I thought it'd be best that I don't." Get in his face, and then I just sort of let him hang out in the backyard and not really encroach on him too much. And I said that was actually a very good read because you don't know him.
No.
In reality, he's a great dog.
Yeah.
He's a silly, goofy sort of
he's an old soul.
Old neutered sort of guy, like a single unmarried guy who's 60, But yeah, it's very hard when you have a breed that doesn't emote so that you can. And so when you're taking a dog who does emote and you're suppressing them like you talked about, you're basically taking away all of those warning signals, which make them even more dangerous.
Yep. It's like not even having a loaded gun. It's like having a loaded machine gun, because when they explode, it's crazy.
Yeah. It's really bad.
Yeah. So,
And so that would be an example of a trainer who doesn't really know what they're doing and working with an aggressive dog and putting it on social media. And the layperson looks at that and goes, "Wow, amazing. Look,
My dog,
they rehabbed this 80-pound pure muscle pit bull. And now I knew it was just an all how you treat them." And meanwhile, this dog is a dangerous dog. And the average person doesn't see it with the same eyes as those who are professionals.
Then I worry about that average. And okay, to go back, this is what I was going to say. This all comes full circle with it's a power thing. Oh, I retrained this dog who was aggressive. Now look at him. Oh, I did this. And then it just becomes this power game of it's this loop of forgetting about ethics and being like, well, I went in this to help aggressive dogs, and now it's turned into something completely different.
I get a kick out of it.
Yeah.
I get a dopamine release from it, and it can be very much a God complex, very much. I'm the only one. That's the other thing in the rescue industry. I'm the only one who can give this dog a good life. It becomes like a real mentality. This dog can only have a good life with me. And then the next dog can only have a good life with me. And before you know it, they're hoarding, right? Because they don't believe that the dog can have a good life somewhere else, because they set up this perfection, this perfect home in their minds, a 6-foot stockade fence that fences an entire acre in the backyard. Some of the requirements from these rescue groups are absolutely outrageous. And, 99% of the people could never, qualify.
And therefore people go online.
And then they go to the pet store.
Yep. And they get a puppy mill puppy. And then people are just like, oh, adopt, don't shop, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And it's just how hard it is to adopt a dog? We've been out there, we've tried it. We've gone to specific rescue groups that only have specific type of dog, and they still give us a hard time about it.
Yeah.
And we have all this experience, all this actual physical evidence of being very good people, very good dog owners, and you're going to not give me a dog? Are you kidding me?
Right.
I'm trying to do something for the dog community.
Who are supposed to be set up for the benefit of dogs end up doing a great disservice
to them. And it's
not all of them. Not all of them.
Not all of them. This is just our little rant
but
it
is significant enough to have a real effect on the quality of life of the average homeless dog, You hear somebody
that's Remy. She's
cooing. Oh, you know why? Because Daddy's home.
Yeah.
And he doesn't have her in the bedroom with him.
Yep.
So she's whining outside the bedroom. I don't know if you guys can hear that. Remy. All right. So I don't know if we ranted enough.
It was a lot of ranting.
It was a lot of ranting. I didn't expect to go the rescue route with this episode, but it was.
I think we need to rename it.
Aggression, rescue, and other tangents.
Yep.
So the bottom line is, I am ambivalent about working with aggressive dogs. Truly ambivalent. Mm-hmm. I think in some cases, the minority of cases, maybe it's a good idea, but the majority of cases, I wonder what the end point is, what the end game is here. Mm-hmm. What are we trying to do? And are we doing it ethically and for the safety of the entire community?
And for people who do it to the best of their abilities, kudos, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. It doesn't appeal to me.
There's a huge need for this. Yep. We can talk in another episode about how I know that good breeders, ethical breeders, are making any kind of a negative impact on the homeless dog population in this country. They're just not. Mm-hmm. Because those who are coming to me for a dog are not people in general who are looking for a rescue dog. They have something specific in mind. They want specific behaviors. They want a specific size, a specific coat length,
a specific person. They want something that they can expect. Mm-hmm. And that's really when it comes down to like what I always look for in a dog is like we created so many different types of breeds and styles and shapes that will fit anybody's personality, since humans
pick one.
Yeah, just pick one that matches your personality. Right. And run with it, because I guarantee it's gonna be the best decision of your life.
I guess that's probably why we work with a lot of mixed breeds, a lot of clients who come to us with dogs that they've adopted.
Yeah.
And most of them turn out to be fantastic dogs. They might come in misunderstood. Mm-hmm. Or in a situation that's not ideal for them, if they're a dog that needs a lot of exercise and they're in an apartment in New York City, or a dog who really isn't capable of doing the kind of running, I take them for a 5-mile run. Dude, it's a Rottie.
Yeah.
They get overheated and they're not designed to run. You should have gotten a different dog. I mean, even when that happens, in the rescue sort of adoption, they can come to us and we can set up a management plan, give them realistic goals, train the dog, work with them, and it works out. And I'm blown away every time. Mm-hmm. And I find myself writing that final report card, always saying the same thing. You got a real gem here.
Yep.
This dog's great.
Yep.
And I guess it's because I can see so many ways these things going wrong. Mm-hmm. And when they go right, and probably more times than not, they do go right. It's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing for really everyone involved.
It really is.
Yeah.
And we've had a handful of amazing gems who've come from rescues, and we've just been like, these are unrealistic expectations that you're asking. Here are some realistic expectations, and it's just like an amazing.
And you've got a great dog there.
Yeah.
And there's been plenty of mixed breeds that have come to us. Probably all of them have been mixed breeds that you and I go, well, if they don't want to take her back,
I will
stay. Yeah. We fall in love with some of these little mixed breeds, and I'm always surprised at that too, because I'm such a snob with my particular breed.
Yeah.
I'm partial to the Aussie and the herding group in general.
Yeah, so but if someone plopped a little Charlotte in front of me,
that's right,
a little Jack in front of me, I'd take that bad boy home with me.
And I would never imagine that those two little mixes would fit, my personality, but they turn out to be great.
Yeah.
So there's lots of success stories and wonderful stories as well. But there is a dark side. There's a dark side to rescue.
To anything, especially when it has to do with living things. There's tends to always be some sort of a dark side.
For sure. Well, there's so many possibilities, so many iterations. All right, we don't have a sad story for you again this week. I couldn't come up with one. Do you got a sad story for me?
No, not really. I'm trying to think of like anything, but no.
All right, well, no, I bet I can make you a cry story this week. I don't know if you guys are happy or sad about that, but there you have it. So I think we're over an hour, so I think Jacob's got plans, so we need to wind this up.
Oh, and Sunny's going to be here any second, so we got to go.
Oh, shoot.
Yeah, it's 3:00.
All right, guys. This has been great. I hope you got something out of it. Episode 8 in the can. And we'll see you guys next time on Dog for Thought. Bye. Dog for Thought is written and hosted by me, Sarah Brown, co-hosted by Sophie Brown, produced, edited, and original music by Jacob Brown. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Bye.